Welcome everyone to another connection in our another 1 second of our One World Energy Encounter with the Zohar. This week we're in the portion of Miketz, and we're in our Zohar. We'll be at verse 84, which is page 191, volume 6. And as our teachers have explained to us, this week is the second of the 3 weeks, which outlines what goes on in Joseph's life and his story, his narrative. And it also, of course, happens to be right now, the 6th day of Hanukkah. So we have this energy of miracles that's still available to us. It's also past midday. I said 6, I meant 8. Thank you, Peter. It's also the 8th day of Hanukkah. So this is like manifestation of all the energy of Hanukkah, of all the days leading up, and of course it's the energy of miracles. So this gives us the ability to still connect to the upper realm, the realm of fulfillment, the realm where miracles are the norm, and to think about all the places that we'd like to see manifestation of miracles of and in a world where there's a lot of challenges. So yes, Peter, I see your hands up. Can you go off mute?
Yeah,
There you go.
I'm laughing because obviously we haven't even started and I got a question. Since the 8th day falls today, and when sundown goes, the Shabbat comes in. Shabbat also endless light, right? So is there something unique about the fact that, right, that it's ending on this day? Does it keep going? You know what I'm saying? Is there?
Yeah, I think it's like the afterglow continues into Shabbat. And our teachers have spoken about that and other times where we go from a holiday into Shabbat. It definitely creates continuity. And by the way, much in the way that we see Hanukkah itself sits right between Sagittarius and Capricorn. Like we're already in the 2nd day of Capricorn, and which is a month which is much more challenging than Sagittarius. So there's the confluence of a lot of different energies, all in a very positive way. So we have that. So as we sit here, between like Friday and Shabbat, where the energy of Shabbat is already infusing our world after midday, and we're past midday. And as we are still connecting to the 8th day of Hanukkah, we have still a tremendous opportunity to channel the energy of blessings for our world. And so as we connect to these verses, let's have a consciousness of peace peace in the world, of the end of the conflict in the Middle East, of return of all the hostages, of safety and protection for everyone who's in harm's way, specifically all the innocent that are impacted by the war, and also energy of protection for the soldiers who are trying to rescue those hostages. And also we want to channel the energy of avat chinam, unconditional love, treating everyone with human decency, energy of protection from negativity, from evil eye, from evil speech, and also the energy to assist the world in elevating all of our individual consciousnesses to the ability to really channel all those blessings. So someone want to volunteer to read English for us today? Okay, thanks, Ron. We'll be inviting in the Kabbalistic lineage of the Rav and Karen and Michael, of Rav Schlag, Rav Brandwein, Uriah Kodesh, Ram Chal, Rabbi Tarfon, Rav Zulai, Rav Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, Rav Kolonum Shapir Piasetson, Rav Shem Tov, Rav Shimon Rabbi Chai and all the students, Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, One Soul with Yosef Tzadik in Shem, which is always a very significant connection. But as we're reading the stories of the 3 weeks that we're reading, the story of Joseph is even a stronger connection. We also today have the anniversary of elevation of Rav Yaakov Tzvi of Parashat. So we have his assistants today also on the second day of Tevet, of Capricorn. Okay, verse 84. Vayar Yaakov ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim, v'yomer Yaakov lebanav v'gomer. Rabbi Chia patach v'yamar, Masa devar Shem al Yisrael ne'um Hashem noteh shamayim v'yosed aretz v'yotzei ruach adam b'kirbo haikra itlis takalabe Masa devar Shem b'chol hanei atar deka amar Masa amai ele b'chol atar diyu al dina Dishar Amin ve'amar Masa letav. Bechol atar de'iyu al Yisrael ve'amar Masa lavish. So before Ron reads the English, let's talk about some context for the story and what we're reading. So Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. He goes to Egypt, gets a job, ends up in prison. I'm simplifying the story. Ends up in jail. The baker and the wine steward, who were two assistants to Pharaoh, end up in jail for doing messed up stuff. The wine steward gets out, but the baker does not, and that's based on dreams that Joseph interprets. And so the wine steward is back working for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh had last night, well, not last night, Pharaoh had a series of dreams, and his soothsayers could not interpret them for him. And so the wine steward's like, hey, there was this guy, Joseph, in prison. He was really good with dreams. And they bring him out. And so that's this week's portion is dealing with literally Joseph's ascension. Up until that point, it'd been a steady decline for Joseph. His brothers hated him. They ended up selling to slavery. He goes to Egypt, strange land, new employer. The wife tries to entice him to do things he knows he shouldn't be doing. He ends up in jail. It's like been a steady downhill for Joseph. Yet, somehow, he knows he's destined to do great things for the world. He is the channel for Yesod. All sustenance that finds its way into our realm is coming through Yesod. And Joseph opens up that channel for us. And in the story, he opens up the channel for the world, because the dreams he interprets for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, we're going to have 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, and you need to be stockpiling the food now, so we'll be able to handle the famine. And Pharaoh listens to him, puts Joseph in charge. And so when the famine does come, they in turn become the only place you can go to for food in the world. And so in this story, Joseph represents this channel for sustenance, both physical and spiritual sustenance for the world. And it's not just that, it's that he continues as the channel for Yesod to be the place where all sustenance, physical and spiritual sustenance, finds its way into our world. So that's the story leading up to this. Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Now Jacob saw that there were provisions in Egypt. This verse.
Okay, so they're out in Canaan and they're out of food. They're out of provisions. And Jacob sees that there's provisions in Egypt. So how did he see that? On CNN? How does he know that? Okay, maybe you could say that there were trade routes. And so people, commerce of the day, there were all these, people coming by, passing through. So maybe he heard that, but it doesn't say he heard it. It says he saw it. So the reason why that's challenging, and the Zohar has a problem with it, and Rabbi Schlag is going to help us understand that, is because when Joseph was sold, when he thought Joseph was dead, he became so despondent, he lost his connection to prophecy. So for him to say that he saw it conflicts with This idea that he lost his ability to actually see a deeper reality when he thought Joseph was dead. Okay, keep going. These uppercase letters, this is Rav Shlag's explanation. Go ahead.
This verse is difficult to understand because the Shekhinah left him when Joseph was sold.
So a connection to the Shekhinah is another way of looking at the ability to see that deeper reality. And that's what Jacob lost. Go ahead.
Therefore, how could he have seen that there were provisions in Egypt?
This is before the internet, so he couldn't have seen it. Go ahead.
Rabbi Hia opened the discussion with the verse, the burden of the word of Hashem concerning Yisrael, the saying of Hashem who stretches out to heavens and lays the foundation of the earth and forms the spirit of man within him.
Okay, so we have this question. How is Jacob able to understand what's going on? And, not to worry, because Rabbi Chia is going to assist us with that. And he assists us with that with a verse from Zechariah, for the prophet Zechariah, which talks about burdens, the burden of the word of Hashem concerning Israel. So, like, what does that have to do with Jacob? And then it goes on to discuss how our reality is the heavens stretched out, and you have the foundation of the earth, and then you have the spirit of man within him. So it's not easy to see, like, what is the connection? It's certainly not giving us the answer. Maybe it's laying that foundation for an answer. Go ahead.
We have to study this verse carefully. He asks, what is the meaning of burden in the various passages? He answers, whenever the word burden is used in reference to judging other nations, the word has a good meaning. Whenever it is used in a reference to Israel, it has an evil meaning.
Okay, we're reading English for verse 84 in Miketz, volume 6. So, and the title of the article is Now Jacob Saw That There Were Provisions in Egypt. So as we're trying to understand how Jacob could see prophetically when he lost his connection to the Shekhinah, when he lost his prophetic abilities. So we have this verse from Zechariah, and what the Zohar is focusing on is this idea of burden, and tells us when the word burden is used with other nations, the other 70 nations, it's positive. But when it's used with reference to Israel, it's negative. Again, that is a conflict. That'd be why is a burden good in one situation, bad in another? So the Zohar really has just brought up more questions than answers at this point. So that's where we're at. Now, this is really important to understand in terms of how it applies to our lives. Because no matter what it is we have going on in our lives, we have to, Kabbalistically, what our teachers have told us is that we want to look at life's challenges as happening for us, not happening to us. And that's a big challenge. It's a challenge when we get challenged and we're like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And we know that the best way to handle this is take a step back and say, well, this is happening to help me grow in a certain way, to expand my vessel, to assist me in revealing more of my gifts to the world. We came here to reveal our gifts. We didn't come here to suffer. So when we find ourselves in a challenge and when we find ourselves suffering, that's not what we came here for. That is not the Kabbalistic view on why we're here. The Kabbalistic view on why we're here is to reveal blessings, to perfect the world. That's the job that we took over from the angels at Mount Sinai. So along those lines, we all have a role to play in perfecting the world. And it starts in our own backyard and front yard, for that matter. It starts with what's going on in our lives, the challenges that we have. We don't think the challenges that we have are making a difference to the world. They're precisely making a difference in the world, because that's what we came here to work on. That's the contract we made with the light before our souls came back to do the work we're doing. So it's a whole shift in consciousness in terms of how we're going to look at our challenges. And let me be the first one to say, I can't speak for anyone else, but my challenges, they don't look like they're gifts. They don't look like gifts at all. Well, maybe I don't want to call them gifts. They are challenges, but the gifts are what are supposed to be revealed through us working through those challenges. The idea is that we have certainty that the light is in those challenges. We don't have certainty that we're seeing the gifts that challenge is opening up. We have certainty that they're there somewhere. We definitely don't see them. If we saw them, it wouldn't be a challenge, would it? No, we have to do work in an area we don't see what's coming out of it. I don't see what's coming out. Not only do I not see what's coming out of it, I don't see a way out of it. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just see the burden. That's where we're at. And it's like how we look at it, and where our consciousness is going to have a direct impact on how we navigate it. Navigating it is different when we understand that this is happening for us, not to us. It doesn't mean it's any less painful. It might be less painful, but doesn't mean it necessarily is any less painful. Okay, so that's the relevance of this section. That's why it's not just a story about Joseph. It's not just a story about Jacob. It's present moment relevance in our lives. That's what's going on in the Zohar. So it's giving us the ability to more fully appreciate what's going on in our lives. And we all have challenges. We all have things going on. They're there to assist us in revealing our gifts, even though we don't see what those are when we're engaged in the challenge. Okay, verse 85. Any questions so far? I just raise your hands if you have one. B'chola 85. B'chola tardihu al dina dishar amin latav begin de masa matola ihu kiviyachol matola ihu alek de kuchabrichu shalom da amin avodat kolchavim b'chad itgazar dina alayhu me'avar mine ahu matola de ihu sabil alayhu b'chola tar de dina itgazar alayhu d'Yisrael be'amar masa kiviyachol matola ihu alek de kuchabrichu V'gin kach masa mehai gisa, umehai gisa matola ihu. Ron?
He explained, wherever it speaks of judging the other nations, the word burden has a good meaning because it is used literally for the welfare of the idolatrous nations, is a burden to the Holy One, blessed be he.
Okay, so what this means is the idolatrous nations, and the Zohar will go into this, there's judgment out there, and the Creator is holding back on the judgment, and that's the burden. Is there any burden too heavy for the Creator? No. So this is somewhat of an anthropomorphism, just to let us know that the Creator is holding back. There is restriction going on in terms of that judgment being visited upon the 70 nations outside of the children of Israel. Okay, well, there's a different story, though, when we talk about the children of Israel. Go ahead.
But when judgment is upon them, he removes the burden he assumed for their sake. Hence, when burden is mentioned in relation to them, it is for good.
Okay, and that's with reference to the 70 nations. Go ahead.
Wherever judgment has been pronounced upon Israel and the word burden is used, it is a burden on the Holy One, blessed be he, to punish Israel.
Aha, that's a different meaning. That's quite a different meaning. Burden with reference to the 70 nations, Creator's holding back the burden, holding back the judgment. So that's the burden. Burden with respect to the people of Israel, it's a burden because the judgment has to be delivered. Now, by the way, we have the 70 nations, which are referred to as Avodat Kochavim, meaning they do their idol worshiping. They're worshiping literally the stars. And we're big into astrology, so it's a different kind of astrology. The primary difference is they believe that there isn't one unified creative power. They think those separate stars and heavenly bodies and other things are where the power comes from, like my lucky rabbit's foot. Now, with astrology, we also, I mean, look, there's 7 dominant planetary influences. But we know those are channels for the light of the creator, as opposed to being independent of the creator. And that's this unified view of the world. And the dividing, by the way, so we talk about the 70 nations, those who are doing their service to the stars, idol worshippers, and then there's children of Israel. Is there only 2 categories? Is there some middle group somewhere else that's kind of like, Sweden? It turns out we're not neutral in World War II, but is there some kind of neutral party? The point is, if you are on the path of the children of Israel, this is that path. Or you're outside that path. This is the universal path of connecting to the creator. Everyone else is connecting to other powers that they worship: money, status, power, actual idols. We understand that when we are doing well from a physical sustenance standpoint, we understand that's coming from the creator. This is why we tithe. We're paying the creator back his share of our earnings. That's our partner. Like, we understand that all the blessings that we experience are coming from the creator. We don't think we're responsible for them. We have to do stuff, but it's still coming from the creator. So that's the distinction. And so when we're talking about those other 70 nations, that's what we're referring to. They don't see the path that we see, that everything's coming from the creator. Okay, keep going.
It is a double burden, because it is a burden for him when he does punish them, and when he does not, it is a burden for him. If he does not punish them, they will remain defiled by sin. If he does punish them, he is sorry for their troubles. Therefore, when burden is mentioned in regard to them, it is for evil.
Okay, so that's why there's a distinction between burden when it's mentioned with respect to the children of Israel. It's negative. Now, what does even this mean? This is the system of cause and effect. In our world, we have a system of cause and effect. It looks arbitrary. It looks like people just get punished for no reason whatsoever, and some people do really well for no apparent reason. That's because we don't see the deeper reality. One of the things that one of my teachers explained recently is that specifically on the 6th, was it the 6th day? Well, it was on the new moon. So actually it was yesterday. That we have this extra ability to connect to what's known as the Mazalah, which is an aspect of Keter that's responsible for personal and physical sustenance. We still have that ability to connect. It's actually verse 113 in Miketz. We didn't read that, but if you want to take a look at that, it's a powerful connection to the Mazalah. And by connecting to the Mazalah, we are connecting to, again, a deep source of physical and spiritual sustenance. That verse refers to Joseph the righteous. And so when we see someone who is doing, financially well in the world, it's because they have that connection to the Mazalah. That's what determines it. So our connection to it is super important, and our ability to connect to it is really important when it comes to sustenance. So I asked the question of our teacher, I'm like, well, let's say, we see somebody doing well financially, but they're not connecting to the Mazalah. They're not studying the Zohar, as far as I know. So how come they're doing so well? So his answer is, and it's important to understand, at some point they did something to merit that financial sustenance. So this underscores this world of cause and effect that we live in. We don't see the cause. Sometimes we just see the effect. And when we step out of bounds, when we connect to negativity, when we throw a negative boomerang out in the cosmos, it's coming right back at us and hitting us in the head. There are things that we can do to ameliorate the impact of that negativity, to sweeten those judgments. And those are things that we do. We use our tools. We study Zohar. We do all kinds of things to remove judgments. And different times in the year, it's more opportune for us to remove judgments. But that's still a burden. There's a disconnect between cause and effect. So in the upper realm, if you were to do something negative, the effect would happen immediately. In our realm, it's delayed. There's a delay between cause and effect. And that delay is part of the merciful structure of our reality, because with a delay between cause and effect, we have the opportunity to correct before that judgment is visited upon us. So what the Zohar is saying is that that's a burden on the Creator to hold back those judgments. And that is part and parcel of this reality that we occupy. That's why bad people don't see bad things happening to them right away. There's a delay. And that benefits us also. And that's what the Zohar is bringing out. It's this opportunity to do teshuvah, return to the hay, to return to the purest aspect of our soul, to remove those blockages. Okay, let's go to verse 86. Kevan da amar notesh shamayim v'yosed aretz, amai itz terich v'yotzer ruach adam b'kirbo, b'chila havina yadei dihu yotzer ruach adam, ele lachza'a darga yedi'ah, d'chol ruchin v'nishmatin da'alma, b'ahu darga kaimin. Right?
Before I start, can I just say, like you said, bad
Please.
things. So is that also why bad things happen to good people?
Yeah, it is. Like we're seeing them as good, but we don't really know what's going on. Absolutely. I mean, it's karma. I keep using I think of it as the boomerang effect. You throw a boomerang, you throw anything, you think it's going out there and, it's done. Carpe diem, live today, for tomorrow, we perish. I mean, we don't experience a world of cause and effect through our five senses. It looks arbitrary, but it's not. There's a reason for everything. We just don't merit to see the reason. And the same thing goes with the challenges that go on in our life. They are definitely challenges. We don't merit to see the reasons why. That's one of the reasons why in a lot of our connections and our prayers, we ask for spiritual memory. I'm trying to remember what that contract was I made with the Creator when I came here. Because the more I know, the more I can be prepared for it. Like, it would be great, to get, to get that message. Like, it looks like Jacob did get that message at the beginning of this section. He gets a message that, yeah, they're experiencing famine, but there are provisions in Egypt. He doesn't want to go to Egypt. He doesn't actually. He sends the sons. He doesn't go at all. They don't necessarily want to go. That's their process. And we're not going to get to it, but they get there, and the guy who's in charge of all the food thinks they're spies. It's like, oh my God, what did we do? And they literally say at one point, when Joseph kind of said, Joseph, of course, is concerned that they're going to treat Benjamin the way they treated him. So he concocts a scenario where where Benjamin is framed, so he can separate Benjamin, his full brother, from the rest of the brothers, because he feels like he's protecting him. And the brothers promised Jacob that they would protect Benjamin with their life, because he's the only other child surviving from his marriage to Rachel. So, and then they literally, in the Torah, it says, what did we do to deserve this challenge? Literally, it must have something to do with Joseph. And Joseph's right there. They don't recognize him. He's all Egypt out. Modern hairstyle, makeup. I don't know. They don't recognize him. They don't recognize their own brother. So, like, that's a great story, but like, this is what goes on in our lives. We have challenge. I don't know why I'm going through this challenge. I don't know what's at the end. Jacob doesn't know that ultimately the famine is what is going to return Joseph to his life, because that's what happens. He doesn't know that. He also doesn't know that his children have to end up in Egypt because there's corrections that they need to be doing by being in Egypt. He doesn't know that either. And at some point he does know it, by the way, but he doesn't know that. And so they end up all staying in Egypt. And that's a prelude to what becomes the Passover story, our emancipation from slavery, our emancipation from the physical and spiritual chains that are keeping us in Egypt, that we have to, again, another process, we have to break out to get to Mount Sinai to manifest the revelation of the Torah and reconnect to immortality, which is what happens. So like we can see that process now, but Jacob didn't. And so for us, this is powering our certainty in the things that are going on in our lives that seem like they don't make any sense. I can't believe I have this challenge. I don't see how this is helping anybody. I don't see where this is going. Well, it's going to immortality is where it's going. Literally. Oh my God, you're kidding. The world, it's not even a safe place right now. Well, okay, along the way, that's going to happen. So we can look at the fact that the world isn't a safe place in many ways as the world, evolution going backwards, but it's not. Joseph is getting sold into slavery. He's thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, ends up in prison. It's going from bad to worse. But he sees it as his process. And we need the strength to see the challenges in our life as our process also. Yes, Andrea.
So I always refer to Joseph when he sees it as his process. And when I'm going through tough times, there would be, and there still is, times where okay, so what's the difference? Like, you see it as your process versus you just accept this is how it is. But I know when I do that, I start my esteem, like my confidence starts going low. So it's like, okay, it is what it is. I accept it. This is just my life. This is just how it is. And then I attach myself to that, and then it doesn't help me grow. Whereas Joseph, he accepted it, but he worked with it, I guess, right? To
Yes.
elevated rather than getting stuck.
Yes. Yeah. Easy for him, I guess. Was it? I don't know.
Right.
Like, it's difficult for us. Like, I can't believe some things that are going on.
Yeah.
Right. And you're right. It does bring us down. But listen, it brought him down too. It's our resiliency that matters. It's our spiritual resiliency that matters.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he was not saying, "Oh yeah, I knew I'd end up in a pit." I knew that. I knew I was going to end up in jail. Yeah, this part. He doesn't know that. I knew Potiphar's wife, the most beautiful woman in the world at the time, was going to seduce me. He didn't know that either. It's like, what is the, at a certain, listen, in his head, there's a certain voice that's going off that's, I imagine, that's saying, I don't believe this is happening. That's our lowest, it's our lower consciousness. Our elevated consciousness is saying, wow, can't believe this is happening, but I'm working through this. So it's like, which half are we listening to? Because that lower consciousness is the opponent. It's not even us. Your soul definitely knows that those challenges that are happening for you are not meant to bring you down. They're meant to give you an opportunity to grow. But the opponent's saying, there's no soul. What are you talking about? I'm you. This is you. I'm you.
David?
Yeah.
If I may, Andrea, because I think we all know what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that I think the point is maybe the distinction would be, certainly for Joseph compared to me, is I have lost my connection with the creator in that moment, right? I'm not still thinking that I'm connected because I'm falling down into the, whatever you want to call it, right?
Into the pit.
It's not a matter of not knowing it's not for our good. It's just that that moment, I don't have the strength to.
Well, it's just like a survival instinct starts coming out. Like you get the trauma that you keep living, a survival instinct comes out, and to me that is like, that supersedes your connection to the creator. Like, how do you stay connected and not get into, okay, well, this is emotions and this is depression or this is anxiety and I just got to get through this day. And I just, does that make any sense?
Actually, you guys, I got something, David, I'd like to
Thank
put
you.
I'd like to throw something at you. I think it's important to embrace whatever's coming up. Okay. Like, regardless of, it does not feel good. I don't care what that is. Sadness, depression, it looks terrible, but you have to taste it. You have to feel it.
True.
You don't have to wallow in it for 1,000 days. You just have to greet it. You have to be face to face with. But
some people do have to wallow in it for days.
Well, but
it's
I
just
guess
their
we have
process.
tools. Right. We have tools.
I mean, well, let's say it's not easy to avoid wallowing in it for days. Like, I'm speaking personally, there's certain things that have happened to me quite recently where it's like, it's been days for me to get through it. For me to get back to what I would say is my positive consciousness.
Right.
Because we get so engrossed, we get so overwhelmed. Like, I mean, someone could tell me, shake it off.
Take it off.
It's not
Guess
shaking
what?
off. But the thing is that, and to Suzanne's point, like, the thing about it is that depending on the severity of the thing, like, someone just, you're at the Starbucks and they get your order wrong and tell you to live with it, whatever. Okay, I can shake that off pretty quickly.
Right.
But certain things I can shake off, the significant things, but you have to work. It's an opportunity to elevate your consciousness. That's what's going on. And sometimes it can happen quickly, but let's face it, the things that I can shake off now versus 20 years ago, I didn't shake off as quickly. The things that are happening now are much more significant. And so they do take time.
Yeah.
We do want to shake them off. Ideally, I want the resilience to shake it off quickly, but I don't want to bury it. That I don't want to do. That's the challenge. We can't, and I think to Suzanne's point, we need to feel it. We don't want to mute. Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah. So I'm Andrea, like you've been probably at the Kabbalah Center as long as I have, maybe, about the same, maybe, but and maybe whether it's for us or other people, it's pausing. It's the proactive formula. It's pausing. It's breathing. It's then whatever it takes, like shifting whatever you're doing into like, I'm like focused on the negative, go and do something for somebody else, or just find somewhat to be grateful for. I'm breathing. It could start with I'm breathing, I'm alive, and this is happening for me. I know it doesn't feel good. And then get into some kind of quote unquote action. I don't know, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's just focusing, trying to focus on someone else. But at the same time, it's the foot in two worlds where you do have to process and you have to meet it face to face. And then I think once, for me, things, I'm lucky. Stuff comes up, it's abominable. I mean, I'm a Cancerian, so it feels like it's larger than life.
Oh
It's
yeah.
huge. It's huge. And then I have to step back at some point and just go, oh my God, this is like, it starts to get comical after a while. I just keep working forward, like keep walking, like whatever you need to do, just keep going. And even if it's keep going and breathing into it. And eventually none of this stuff, thank God, it doesn't last. It's powerful. It's intense. I have to face it. And I think that's my tikkun. I have to face it. Like I can't bury it. Right.
Yes.
So I think everyone's a little
It
different.
clearly, Suzanne, it clearly is your tikkun. It's clearly the work that you came here to do. And one of the telltale signs is it's heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like massive. But now I realize, well, and it helps obvious to listen to, like Michael and Monica last night. Talk about, there's an infinite possibility there, and that we have to reach beyond. Michael was saying the word beyond. I tend to like strength too, but an infinity and all, and trying to remember all these little things, and then all of a sudden it does start to lift. I think another thing, what I do is I just leave the New York connection, the thing we do Monday night, the Zohar connection. I let that thing kind of play in the background throughout my day, whether I'm in the room or not. I just have it on low, and it tends to help. Just somebody live is doing Zohar, whether I'm completely connected or not. And it maybe that's why some of the stuff lives. I don't know, quickly. But just
So
those are some tools.
actually, I'm gonna read. We're gonna close with the relevance on this section because it's really powerful. Because it's exactly what we're talking about. Let's just take a look at it. When life appears to be calm and water still, we must realize that the Creator is carrying all of our judgments for us. So that's the idea, that when we are not experiencing that painful experience, it's because it's being withheld. That's the burden of the Creator. We should use these moments to repent and proactively uproot our negative traits. That's the time we want to be doing our work. When the situation hits, the pain is real. It's not an illusion. That pain is real. So we want to. It's the old. This is the way Kabbalah 1 is taught these days, class 9, which we just happen to do this week. There's day and there's night. The day is when things are going well. The night is when things are challenging. We want to actually do the work in the daytime when we are connected to the light, when that connection is easy, because there will become a time in our life where it's going to be hard, where it's going to be dark. And the more work we do during the day, the easier it is, the more resiliency we have to feel that pain and still process it. We should intensify or renew our commitment to the spiritual path before the weight of judgments becomes too great to bear and they come crashing down upon us without warning. And that is the experience of what we have in those situations. So that's why this is such a powerful section, not only just in terms of intellectually dealing with life's challenges, but on a much deeper, much more spiritual way, assisting us in understanding the reality of day and night, of times that are not challenging and times that are seriously challenging, and assisting us spiritually in preparing ourselves for those times and assisting us in navigating the things that are going to come. They are being withheld, but they're going to come because they're assisting us in our growth. Even though it doesn't feel that way and it doesn't look that way, we still want to find a way to connect to the certainty at some level that there's a benefit to what I'm doing right now. And in that way also alleviate some of the heaviness, some of the pain, some of the burden, but not all of it, because we have to feel it in order to do that work. Remember, lack is energy. We identify it as lack, but ultimately it's just more energy coming from the cosmos. And ultimately, the fulfillment is there. We're just not feeling that energy. And we need to do the work to expand our vessel so we can accommodate the blessings that are coming. All right, everybody, we're out of time. Well, I mean, great session, a lot of really, really important, helpful
Yeah.
dialogue. So thank you all. Love you all. Chag Hanukkah Sameach. Happy Hanukkah. Shabbat Shalom. And see you all soon.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
David. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.